I have a new light in the studio that I'm extremely excited to test out because it's an update to my previous favorite light in the studio. It's the Aputure 300d, and we're going to be trying out the version 2. We're going to do this as a somewhat informal unboxing. I just want to compare it to some of the other lights that I already use and see how it's going to fit into my workflow. Starting with your all-new carrying case, this feels way better built now. The old one kind of felt like what you'd expect a free case to be like. You know, it was functional, but the new one feels like something you'd actually pay money for. And looking at the ballast, this is where all my favorite improvements are. We've turned 2 ballasts into 1. It used to be a lot messier, so there's less cables, 2 instead of 3. It might look big and heavy at a glance, but the fact that you can snap it onto the stand and just mount it safely, securely, and easily makes me way more comfortable using this one big hunk of metal than the previous 2. I love that the new ballast doesn't have any fans in it, so you never get any noise out of it. There are fans in the light, but the ballast is completely silent, whereas in the old one, you would always have fans running in one of the 2 ballasts. Cables have been simplified. We only have 2 now instead of 3, which is a huge improvement. Also feeling a lot more robust, a lot thicker. Definitely another step forward. We've got the clamp so that we can attach our ballast to the light stand. And usually the new reflector isn't an exciting thing, but this one is supposed to be 300% more output. It has a slightly narrower beam because of that. And finally, let's get to the light. First impression, it is way heavier. You can really feel the difference. There's a lot more metal going on in this thing, but it's really chunky. It feels like a real light ready to be on set. It can now rotate 360 degrees all the way around. Still has our standard Bowens mount. And overall, all the best things about it are that it just feels much more professional and ready for a real set. I would trust this a little more to get thrown around. But enough looking at it, let's try this out. We've got our previous regular 300D already set up. This has been my favorite light for a long time. It's fantastic. I especially love the extra output. I like it more than the 120D, but it has 2 ballasts. It's always kind of messy when you set it up, like hear that? That would always happen with this light. Oh, actually, here, come in for this. Just spotted a little improvement. They've added a second screw to the base here. Often on the previous, the single screw would get loose and I'd have to find an Allen key, tighten it up to keep the whole light from vibrating. Now the 2 should keep it a lot more secure. I like that. This is our new clamp that should allow us to hook the ballast to the stand. There we go, we have a secure ballast. The model that I've got is the V-Lock batteries. It takes 2 to run at full power, but even if there's only 1 battery, it can still run at 50%. Now let's get this new 300% brighter reflector on. All my favorite new things about this are the way that it is set up and the way that it is to work with. Even though it's 20% brighter, that's nice, but I love the single ballast. This was such a mess. You would have one big long one here, and you can see there's another one hiding on the ground over here. And this had fans that were running all the time. You could always hear them running, so you had to keep it away from your mics. This new one is fanless, so it should be completely silent. Let's try them out. Now for a bit of a real world test. This is the previous 300D and it's running through a single sheet of diffusion. It's like 3 or 4 feet away from me. Looks pretty decent. Might be a little dark right now because we're exposed for the new one. So let's switch over to the 300D Mark II. So now we have a little more output. I mean, it feels like a completely different light is shining on me. I think most of that is due to the reflector. The light itself is supposed to be 20% brighter, but it feels like way more than that. When we shine both lights straight against the wall, we can see there's a much more pronounced hot spot on the new light. That reflector having a narrower band puts a much brighter area in the middle. I'm curious how this is going to translate to different diffused kinds of light, but if you're just looking for more total output, this is going to give it to you. We can also take a look at it where it's just the hard light shining directly on me with no diffusion. You can really see a difference in the output between them. There is a noticeable difference in color temperature between the 2. To my eye, the new one looks quite a bit warmer. I'm gonna have to do some real world using of these because I don't have a spectrometer to know if it's more accurate, which one is more true to life. The new light is rated at a CRI of 97, which is very good. So overall, like this is the light that I would choose. This is what I'd rather have than pretty much anything else right now. Lighting has been one of the most exciting parts of photography and filmmaking lately because it's been moving so fast and opening up so many possibilities. And there's sort of three categories I can think of that are most exciting right now. One is the really high power single source, which is what we're looking at here with the Aputure. The 300D and now the Mark II gives you tons of output, and just plugging into a regular socket without worrying about blowing the breaker means that it's even more viable for taking photos with. Before, you couldn't quite get enough power out of a lot of continuous light sources to do photography. Now you're having a lot more options. And then I'm also really excited about new RGB options, which Aputure has some more stuff coming out soon that I'm very, very excited about. And then also like large, soft sources of light that are very lightweight and easy to move around. Anyway, the 300D Mark II is killing it for that single source. I know that it still feels somewhat expensive. It's around $1,100. I think creators that might be primarily YouTubers or completely independent might see $1,100 as relatively expensive for this light. But maybe I'm just old enough to remember how expensive it used to be to get this kind of output out of a really clean, continuous light, and that doesn't get hot. I mean, I just still appreciate all these things, even though we've had good LED lights for a little while now. They're getting so much better, and this is the generation where it feels the most mature, and everything about it, the build, the design, the features, feel professional, like you can really use them in any working environment. So to me, $1,100 feels like the price is coming down on more professional gear as opposed to a rising price. I mean, there's just all these little details that were refined. I love that you can now go down all the way to 1% on the output here. And it really makes a big difference. Let's crank it up. And there's 100, so that range is huge. And what that means is that this can also fit nicely with a 120D or less powerful lights. So when you turn it all the way down, you can shoot with it in pretty much any environment. So now this one light is incredibly versatile. And if you're only gonna own one light, I would much more like to recommend this one over the 120D. And I do want to try to find one complaint. The only thing I can complain about is that it's really squeaky. If it's not loose all the way, and I noticed the older, like the 120D didn't do that. Maybe I just need to oil it up or something. But that was all that I could think of to complain about this light. I mean, the wireless features are now built in and they are expanded. You can control it from your phone. They've also added a little, some kind of dongle type thing for like the 120D and older lights. So now you're gonna be able to control them all together from the same system. And if we turn it back up, one more detail that I really like is there is a little delay as you turn it on. It's not instantly full brightness, so that if somebody's nearby, it gives them a moment to look away or close their eyes. You can also adjust the curve that the brightness goes up and down on. There's different flashing, blinking settings for like TV flicker or strobes or paparazzi, none of which I plan on using. But overall, this is the light that is probably gonna see the most use from me. I'm planning on incorporating it into more photo shoots as well. I would love to ditch strobes as much as possible. The more I can rely on continuous lighting, the better. If you want to learn more about filmmaking and photography, go to stallmanpodcast.com. I have other creators and YouTubers and all sorts of folks on there, and we talk about everything that's on this channel, but in much more detail. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and keep an eye out for future videos where you'll be seeing a lot more of this light being put to use.